And the Pistons aren't going to sit around and wait to see how things fall into place. They're going to go out and make moves, as they've done so far to this point. Again, if you're just joining, acquiring Isaiah Joe from the Thunder for a couple of future second-round picks. That's not the biggest deal that's gone down in the last 24 hours or so. Obviously, LaMelo Ball to Minnesota for picks and Naz Reid. What's that mean for Minnesota other than trying to find some way for Ball and Anthony Edwards to coexist, not just in the locker room, but in the backcourt, in the huddle before the final shot of the game is going to be taken? And what do we think of the draft as well? A lot to get into with our Audacy NBA insider, Nick Friedell. Insider calls are brought to you by Hyundai and the all-new Hyundai Palisade Hybrid. Morning, Nick. How are you this Friday, my friend?
Mr. Mack, I'm doing great. It's great to be with you. And as usual, there's about 100 different things that we can roll into. So let's get it going.
Yeah, I mean, where do we start? It feels like the draft was a month ago, and it was 2 days. So let's start, though, with the biggest move of the last 24 hours, which is the LaMelo Ball trade to Minnesota. Look, if there's a way Chris Finch can get LaMelo Ball to buy in, to play with the same defensive work ethic that has become a part of the DNA there in Minnesota over the last 5 years under Finch, I do think the ceiling here is a trip to the conference finals. But LaMelo Ball, a volume shooter, trying to coexist in a backcourt with Anthony Edwards, I think has a high chance of combustibility. From the Minnesota perspective, before we get to the Charlotte perspective, from the T-Wolves perspective, what do you think of this?
I immediately went, uh-oh, because you and I had the same thought. I went, oh, boy. LaMelo, I just feel like Charlotte was kind of waiting for this moment to get something in return, and there were a whole lot of ups and downs in the LaMelo experience, and the second they felt like they got a solid return, especially on that deal, boom, gone. So could it work in Minnesota? Could LaMelo and Ant find a way together and catch their rhythm? Yeah, I think it could. Would I bet on it? No, because I just don't buy that all of a sudden LaMelo, who has shown to be the same player year after year after year after year, is going to change, and he's going to now start playing the type of defense that they always wanted him to play in Charlotte to begin with.
Yeah, I also think there's a question here, not just about who Naz Reid was for the chemistry of the locker room and how much he was a fan favorite, but more so the actual tangible idea of having multiple guys who you could either play next to each other on the front line and protect the rim, but also when you wanted to get Gobert off his feet, you could have Naz in there handling things for a few minutes at a time on his own. What this does to Minnesota's interior defense, especially in a Western Conference that we know is going to go through the Spurs and Victor Wembanyama.
Chris, I think it's a really good point, and that was the whole thing that everybody kind of got lost in the Naz Reid love affair. I mean, a fan favorite. He was like a state favorite. Everybody you go to these Timberwolves games, everybody's got the tattoos, and everybody's going nuts anytime he does anything. On a basketball perspective, though, when you watch what is happening with the league, you need big-time interior dudes. And if you're taking away one of your main guys, that's where the whole thing I went, oh, boy. You are banking so much on LaMelo to be this difference maker when you know what you have at least in place there not only works, but to your point, for years, the Western Conference teams are going to be trying to figure out Wemby. This is just the tip of the iceberg, what we've seen. So I did not like this move for Minnesota. I think that Charlotte is going to end up feeling a lot better about all of this. I think the defensive presence, at least having another big guy down low in Naz Reid, is going to help Charlotte a lot. And I think when you take away the guys that helped you build to the point that you were at, if you're the Timberwolves, and they start disappearing and you go and make the splashy deal, more often than not in the league, that doesn't work out.
Yeah, I think there's something to be said, too, for the fact that I know LaMelo had some big moments, especially this year, especially down the stretch, the play-in game against Miami. And they were comfortable with him being the guy in those moments. But I'll be honest, if I'm a Hornets fan, I'm probably more excited about seeing how it develops between Kobe White, Con Knipple, Brandon Miller, and just having multiple options now. We get into a spot late in the game, we're drawing something up in the huddle. We got any one of those three, I would think you trust to take the final shot.
I think that's exactly what they're going for too. They knew they had a bunch of young, talented pieces, and I think by making this move, you give those guys that you just named, Chris, a whole bunch of confidence because you say, "Hey, go do it." We're going to find a way to make it happen night after night, and I think what Charlotte has built in the pieces they already have in place, they keep getting better. I mean, how many times, Chris, through the years where you're like, the hell is Charlotte doing? And now it's like, oh, I understand. Like it makes sense. They're making smart decisions. They've got a good coaching staff in place. It's amazing what happens when you have some kind of certainty in those two factors with a team. So I think it's going to be a very good move long term for Charlotte. And this is the first time I can remember in years and years that on a national basis anybody was talking about Charlotte to begin with.
Nick Friedell, Audacy NBA insider with us here on Westwood One Sports Insider Calls, brought to you by Hyundai and the all-new Hyundai Palisade Hybrid. Learn how it makes every day epic at HyundaiUSA.com. I know it just happened a couple minutes ago, but there have been a lot of these deals, whether it was like Isaiah Stewart to Memphis about 36 hours ago, or Isaiah Joe to Detroit just about a half hour ago, a little less than that. A lot of these secondary pieces getting moved around. In particular, Isaiah Joe to Detroit. I'm curious what your initial reaction is to that, both from the Pistons' perspective. I don't know if you heard me right before you jumped on, but the Pistons aren't going to sit around and wait for this offseason to come to them. But then also from the OKC perspective, which is, hey, we understand we've got to make some moves to stay under the second apron and keep ourselves flexible going forward.
Chris, as far as the Thunder go, that was my first thought because I went, okay, well, they want no part of the second apron that the rest of the league is sitting there going, no. I mean, Jim Dolan, the Knicks owner, had his comments. It is like universally around the league, there are no people that have the real money that are running these teams that want to get anywhere near that thing. So as far as the Thunder go, in my mind, that's all this was because obviously they liked him and they just don't want to touch that second apron. Going back to where the Pistons are at, I mean, I think that he can help, and I think these smaller moves and Beef Stew, he's going out. I think the Pistons' world kind of got rocked a little bit in how the season ended because by rights, and you and I talked about it in the moment, I mean, the Magic should have rolled by them at the end of that game 6. They shouldn't even gotten out of the first round. So I think they're looking at internally, where can we make some adjustments and what do we need to put more talent around Cade? Okay, but I'm not looking at Isaiah Joe going, all right, this is going to be a very big difference maker. What I would tell you on a broader note to what we're talking about how these moves have started to pop up in the last couple of days or so, free agency, the way you and I knew it and all the people that are listening and watching us right now, it's gone. It used to be, oh my gosh, let's see what happens here. July 1st, anything feels possible. And now you're seeing all these teams that are making, there's some major moves, certainly, like we talked about with LaMelo, we saw with the Giannis deal. But that's happening now before free agency even gets rolling. And that is the shift. That's the new salary cap. That's these teams not wanting to touch the second apron. That is the change because for so long, it felt like when the summer rolled around, especially if your team had some money under the cap, you could make some adjustments and things could look different. Now things are looking different. But more often than not, it's coming from trades. It's not coming from straight free agent signings the way we've seen for years and years.
All right, you mentioned him. You brought him up, so let's start to address some of the big names. Giannis to Miami. It does not involve the Celtics, obviously. It does not involve Jaylen Brown, but the Celtics are still clearly invested in trying to move on from Jaylen Brown, which confounds me, but maybe that relationship can't be pieced back together at this point. Let's start with Giannis to Miami. Is it enough for the Heat to take another step, or is this the kind of move that you go, okay, that's nice. Maybe you're not a play-in team. Maybe you make it to the second round.
I do not think it is enough. I think they gave up too much of the depth that helped them over the last few years. And you could say, well, help them do what? All right, fine. But if you're making this move for Giannis, you have to be sure that you're going to find a way to get all the way up or close to the top. And when I look at the Heat, at least this iteration with the pieces that are now around Giannis and Bam, Chris, I don't think it's enough. I don't think it's that much closer either. I would tell you this, though. Giannis is going to come to Miami so pissed off because, one, the Milwaukee thing just imploded. But two, so many people at 31 are sitting there going, he's still great, but he can't stay healthy. He's still great, but I don't know if he was the same player he was a few years ago when he helped him win a title. It's like everything starts with he's awesome, but I think Giannis is going to come in there with a point to prove, and especially once the new deal gets lined up and he kind of commits all the way, people are going to go, all right, maybe we should give this a little more time because guess what? Giannis is still awesome. Bam is awesome. Spoelstra is one of the very best coaches in the league, and Pat Riley has shown year in, year out for a long, long time that he knows how to build teams. The problem to me, Chris, and it ties into what we were just talking about, when you have all these different cap ramifications, you don't have as much ability to make all these different moves that we've seen in the past. So I understand why Miami did it. Giannis is still great. I just don't think in the end it's enough for them to get to where they want to go.
Does it make sense to you that the Celtics have gotten to the point that they have with Jaylen Brown?
It feels like the breakup is upon us because we've been hearing about, is Jaylen Brown going somewhere for years now? I mean, go back to that potential deal with the Nets for KD. I mean, that was 3 or 4 years ago. It's like, is Jaylen Brown going to be a part of it? There's got to be something going on behind the scenes in that it can work with Brown and Tatum. We've seen it. They won a title. Jaylen Brown's a finals MVP. But it feels like, Chris, he wants to be the guy. And he can never, ever be the guy in Boston with Tatum. It's never going to happen. So if he really wants to be that dude, he's going to have to be that dude somewhere else. So, no, I'm not surprised. At this point, given all the smoke around a potential deal, it feels like something is going to happen. And you're always going to wonder, how did it get to the point that it got? Because it was kind of rocky, and they always seem to bring it back. I actually think they could run it back and still have success, but there's been so much talk about where Jaylen Brown's going to go, and so much of it is not Boston, which leads you to believe that something's really going to happen this time.
Before I let you run and go enjoy the weekend, Nick, we're contractually obligated to ask the question. I don't even have to make it a question. I just say a single word, a single first name, and you can go from there. LeBron.
I mean, I knew the name was coming. I get it. Mr. Mack, I don't believe that LeBron's going anywhere. I think he ends up with the Lakers again. And I believe that because, one, he's comfortable in LA. His family's comfortable in LA. There are so many different opportunities for him in LA besides just playing. Two, where's he really going to go? He could go back to Cleveland. We're talking about teams that are good enough to potentially win a title. LeBron makes them better, but I don't think that core is beating the Knicks anytime soon. And I still believe in the Celtics. So, all right, I've heard a lot of people ask about the Warriors. My point all along with LeBron to the Warriors is he's going to have to take $15 million to do it. Why would he do that? On top of the fact that, okay, playing with Steph and Draymond's got to be cool. They're not winning anything. So if you're LeBron and you want to have some kind of realistic chance to at least be in the conversation, you're not going to Golden State. Maybe Cleveland, but you really want to go back there again with all that comes with that. So I understand the interest. He's one of the very best players of all time. I would be surprised if it got to the point where the divorce actually happens and he leaves the Lakers after all this time.
If he doesn't get the kind of deal financially he wants, though, could you see him just walking away?
Chris, I know what he said and I know what's been out there. There's no way a guy with that big of an ego is just going to walk away and disappear and say, hey, I'm out. I know, he doesn't want a retirement tour. He doesn't want everybody. Yeah, right. This dude, he's got a patch on his jersey for, all the years that he's been in there now. He's the only one. I just don't buy that. This is a guy that wants to be loved. And understandably so. He's entertained millions and millions for years. But the idea that he's just going to walk away after building it up like he's coming back one more time and not receive the adulation from all across the league that he would get if he comes back wherever he comes back and plays, I just don't buy that's going to happen.
Nick, love catching up with you as always, my friend. Another spectacular Friedell Friday here on Westwood One Sports. Enjoy the weekend, my friend. I'll talk to you next Friday.
You got it, my man. Great to be with you.